Utilize it. Utilize it.
I appreciate that.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Make sure you can hear. Make sure you can hear too. By the way. All right. Here we go. It's time for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents, not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Good morning, everyone. Brand new show this week. All kind of interesting stuff happening this week, especially interest rates. We'll talk about what's happening with that. A new high this week we just hit for almost a full year. A little bit of part of January we missed there. So rates have been skyrocketing back up. And something we talked about in the show a couple weeks ago, predicted would happen. We kind of called that. And it's happened a little faster than we thought it was. But we'll talk about that. The brand new market numbers in for anyone that missed last week's show. We talked about micro market. This week we'll kind of have the macro market. And that's behind you. They're doing pretty decent. But here's the thing. We're still in that summer market with rates going up. Still pretty decent. Some massive properties under contract this last week. I think there was 5 or 6 over $2 million, one at $5 million. Those are single families. So lots of big money still coming in here. So numbers are still happening. Things are still happening. But I do foresee the rates continue to go up, especially some things that we're seeing with 10-year treasury, some other stuff that really tracks along with the mortgage rate. Talk about that overall. Huge news I did not even get to talk about last week on last week's show. I mentioned it, teased it. We ran out of time because of the micro market. We'll talk about this. Brand new rankings out that ranks the top real estate agents, over 1 million agents in North America. And they call it the Real Trends Top 1,000. And guess who came in number 1 again here at Myrtle Beach? That was us. Very proud of our team, one of the top teams in the country. We'll talk about that, how we stack up, where the numbers came in at, what exactly that means, and the biggest difference there, and how we compare to other places. It's really cool to kind of rank with teams and places in cities like Dallas and Los Angeles. Those are all comparing each other. We're in the top, I think top 70 or whatever it is that we're at, which is awesome considering there's just massive metropolitan areas that cover tens of thousands of agents. And so and that's just in that one little area. So very cool about that. We'll talk about interest rates. I said that's what was going to drive everything going forward. I do think we're going to see a potential painful Q4 for home buyers and home sellers. I think rates continue to go up unless something drastic happens. Obviously, I haven't seen great news with the war, which has continued to drive inflation. You guys have seen what's happened with oil, gas prices, all that continues to go up, and it does not help out for interest rates for mortgages as well. We'll talk about the Fed futures. We'll look at predictions that has continued to creep up, looking at what's happening in December, especially, and also in October. We'll talk about what those numbers look like overall. And the good news is some amazing success stories. Really cool story. We had some people that were needing their properties sold for the most amount of money. They had been almost taken advantage of by a couple people, and thankfully found us from TV and reached out, and we were able to save them a massive amount of money, put way more money in their pocket than they ever thought possible. And they were ecstatic. It's a super cool success story with that overall. But main thing, we do every single week here for 15 plus years in the station. I have one goal: keep you updated on everything real estate related, to help you make better decisions in terms of your largest asset. Most people, their largest asset is real estate, and I talk about this all the time. Is they make this massive mistake of how they pick agents, and it happened twice this week again. Someone texted in through the Google service that they have. And the only thing they ask is, how much do you charge, right? Wrong question. That's not the one thing you want to ask overall. It's one of the important questions, but not the only question you ask. And so we'll talk about how to pick good agents, what to do, how to save massive amounts of equity, and the massive mistakes everyone makes. And so make sure to stay tuned. If you ever want to come back and watch this replay, we stream it online on YouTube. It's having Blake Sloan Radio Show. You can also follow me on Facebook at Blake Sloan. We stream it there, as well as Sloan Realty Group. So make sure to stay tuned. Lots of great stuff on today's show.
For any new listeners, just to give you an update on just who Blake is, it's an amazing story. Industry leaders have done the real estate biz kit, been featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, NBC, Realtor Magazine, and many other national publications. He has been personally endorsed by Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. One of those by himself, all of them together as one president. Last week, We learn to live how you and your team work and how a good portion of your success has come from the trademark systems you have developed to help both buyers and sellers feel our market. Recap quickly for anyone new to the show what those are exactly and a quick overview of how they work, Blake.
Yes, Rick, absolutely. It's the whole reason to the show. It's the whole why behind it. And I made a promise to talk about it every week until I don't have that problem, because everything else I can talk about is cool and all, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as people are still making this massive mistake. We saw it happen this past week. One of the stories to talk about is everyone, consumers especially, make this massive mistake of thinking that all agents are the same, right? They tend to look at them as a commodity, which is not, it could be further from the truth. They look like a corn, rice, right? Then you're just based on what weight and price. But that's not the case when you're talking about anything in the service-based business. That'd be like saying all restaurants are the same, right? All service is the same in restaurants, or all doctors are the same, lawyers are the same. So it's not the case, right? And the last thing when I pick a restaurant by or an attorney by or a doctor by is how much they charge in the cheapest one, right? You want to understand the difference and the nuances and what it is. And like I mentioned, we had someone who texted in from Google and all they asked was, how much do you charge of a property sale? And they don't even know what we do or what's different, right? You want to ask the right questions. So we have one goal to educate people and help them understand, like, look, the single most important variable that determines your success or failure as a home seller comes to one thing only. The thing is the agent you choose, period. One of the examples we'll share today in the success stories is that they had listed a discount broker, which is like a limited service broker. What that means, they don't really do much. They just put MLS. And I didn't sell 6 months. We came and had it sold in a couple of weeks for the same amount of money. And so it's one of those things that makes a big difference overall. And also, I break this down in a documentary. It's funny. I was watching TV this morning with my son. He loves watching Gator Boys, which is like this show used to be on A&E. He's obsessed with Gator Boys. It's on YouTube. We watch it. And long story short, my documentary that we have was just on YouTube on the front page. I'm not sure how. So we started watching it together a little bit this morning. He's like, oh, there's Daddy. So we watch it. And it really was fascinating to go back through, and we give a couple case studies of the same exact scenario. And we teach people in that documentary how to pick the right agent, what questions to ask. And really, it's kind of laid out there. And one of the horror stories he talks about was a lady who reached out to us. She got an email from us. She submitted a home valuation online. We reached out. Turned out she had just closed on her property, I think a week before that, and sold it for $80,000 less than what it's worth. And she needed that money for her retirement because she was elderly, and it had been taken from her by being mismanaged by somebody who basically did it wrong, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about it. We tell that same exact story in that documentary, and I really challenge you to just go look at it. We don't pitch in the whole thing. I really just kind of pull back the curtains of the industry, and I say, look, here's what you need to know as a consumer. Here's the big things that people make mistakes with. They never ask the right questions. Here's the right questions to ask so you can pick the right agent, just so you can be educated on what things are and how the industry works, because everyone makes the same mistake. And so if you want to go watch that detailed documentary, it's at blakesloan.com. It's a great thing that really explains how to pick agents regardless of where you're at. And so I really encourage you to watch that. But back to the point of that is that the reason it matters is there's so many nuances and so many variables. So when you're selling a property, 118 different variables from A to Z, each one's handled correctly, puts money in your pocket, property gets sold. Anything's handled incorrectly, like in the case with the elderly lady, it cost her $80,000. That was a pricing issue, right? And a management issue. And so they left massive amounts of money on the table. And so it could be anything from the order of the photos, the quality of photos. Does the agent actually answer the telephone when a buyer calls? In that documentary, you see they call 3,000 real estate companies across North America. Less than half of the people answered the phone or even called back a buyer, which is unheard of, right? And so think about that. If you go to the average realtor, if you get 10 calls on your property, less than 5 of them get answered or called back. That's the standard across the country. And so you don't want that type of standard when you're dealing with your largest asset, right? Same thing with an attorney. If I'm charged with a crime I didn't commit, or have someone who's trying to, take my assets, the last thing I'm ever going to do is go to the cheapest attorney who's only tried a few cases. I want the absolute most amazing, aggressive attorney who specializes in that type of law to give me a competitive advantage in the courtroom. And then I ask how much they charge, right? Based on what they do and their experience and how they're going to help me based on my case. Then you obviously add in money as one of the variables, but it's not the leading only variable, if that makes sense. And so I have a goal there to teach people to understand that if you take anything from the show, the agent you choose matters more than anything, because how well they execute on those 118 variables makes or breaks a home sale. And so the problem with that in our industry is that it's impossible for one agent to do all those. You have 118 variables, right? You have one person juggling all those balls, working with buyers, working with sellers, doing the marketing, doing their administration, which is like the putting to MLS, schedule showings, getting showing feedback, all those pieces of it, calling you back, answering the phone if buyers call, calling buyers back. What happens if that agent's in a listing appointment with a new listing and then a buyer calls the for sale sign on your house? Are they answering the phone? Definitely not, right? They can't. And so the case is most of them don't even call back. which is crazy. One thing I've noticed, we've been trying to recruit some agents lately. Most agents have an AI, call blocker on there that you can't even get through. To think about that, their numbers out front, buyers are trying to call, they're making them get through a hurdle. Most buyers will just hang up. They don't go through the AI, ask them who they are, what they want, all this other stuff. You need somebody who can really make sure they maximize those opportunities so that buyers aren't turned off when they're reaching out. And so what I did, I'm like, there's got to be a way better way to do this. And I looked at what people did outside of real estate and traditional brick and mortar businesses and brought that into real estate. And so we designed this thing called the Guaranteed Sold System. The only proven system is almost twice as fast for 20% more money than traditional methods, and it works amazingly well. A whole different contrast than the old school method where you have one agent juggling the ball. So when they're working with buyers, sellers, doing marketing, that's like having the same person at McDonald's, their front register, they're driving French fries at the same time. Very, very inefficient, right? Does not work. And so that's why you have to flip that around. I just met with a couple this week that was referred to me from a good friend in Raleigh named Tina Call. She referred them to us. She listed with 2 other agents. 6 months at a time, nothing. Sat down and showed exactly what we did. They're blown away. I said, how's it compared to what you saw with your last 2 experiences? They said, it's absolutely night and day, nothing I've ever seen before. And so that's the goal that we have, and that's what we want you to see. And if you want to know more about that, you owe it to yourself to check it out. Go to check it out, BlakeSloan.com. And guess what? For buyers out there, same exact process. It's your largest asset for most people. The last thing you want is a part-time agent who only sells a few homes. The average agent on MLS sells less than 4 homes per year. You need somebody who understands the nuances, the processes, the data. And when they're part-time, you're not going to get that. And so you want somebody who can help you out. And so I designed this thing called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. Get you priority access to foreclosure, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as the home inspection to get you that closing table successfully. And so if you want to know how it works, reach out, call us. We're working all weekend. We're hustling every single day. Give me a call, 843-808-SOLD. Take a quick break. Right back in a second with our brand new market update.
Sean Hannity here with the only real estate agent in your market that I recommend, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. Thanks for joining me today. You know, a lot of people may be thinking about selling their home, but they want to make sure they're getting the most money possible. What options do you have available to make selling a home easier?
Hey, Sean, we have 3 unique, innovative options for home sellers right now. First, we have a program for maximum convenience. When I represent a large investment fund with millions of dollars looking to buy homes at a fair price in the Myrtle Beach Greenwich area, or we have a program for maximum speed where I can match your property up with over 100,000 plus active home buyers looking to buy properties here on the Grand Strand. Or 3, maximum value. We have a proven system that'll sell your home twice as fast and for 5 to 15% more money than traditional methods.
All right, thanks for keeping us up to date. Call the agent that creates the most demand. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD or online at BlakeSloan.com. That's BlakeSloan.com.
Hi, I'm Barbara Morgan. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. You offer several options for home sellers, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, you can agree to sell it by a certain date, days after your home was even ready.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time,
Use our proven marketing plan and sell it for the highest price.
work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back, Blake Sloan, Real Estate Show. Brand new market update. All kind of interesting stuff happened. I tell you, we're tracking the tale of 2 markets right now. I mentioned this last week. Did a whole video out to our 100,000 plus people in our database. But we sent that out. It's like, man, they're tale of 2 markets. Why? Because if you look at what closed, which is what everyone looks at, that's stuff that closed last month. Great news. The problem with that, it closed last month. It went under contract 30, 60 days prior to that. So in many cases, you're making decisions based on data that's 3 months old. That's an entire quarter of the year. If I do that only, I'm going to make mistakes and not really understand what's happening in real time. So we'll talk about both today, right? We'll talk about the rearview mirror numbers. That's, hey, what closed last month. And we'll talk about what we call the front windshield numbers of like, hey, what's happening going forward? Because I think it's really going to be interesting to watch what happens here. Thankfully, Myrtle Beach is very seasonal right now. We have a lot of people in town that have been searching for months and months, right? There also have people been searching online for years and are coming in town and combining that with their vacation and the time that they have off, right? So I think with a window till Labor Day, there's a second like little wave of a different demographic. Typically people that have less children, right? They're not concerned about children being in school. They want a little bit less crowds. And so we see that happen with like a little bit of fall market. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a rough Q4, I think, for many home sellers out there, based on what we're seeing and based on how the data is tracking. And so hopefully not, hopefully something does, but we'll talk about kind of what that means overall. But I'll say this, it's very resilient. We just hit a new high. Just looking at numbers for 2026 for interest rates. I'll go ahead and get ahead of that right now. This morning, 6.85%, which is crazy. The highest been a whole year for a 30-year fix. Just last week showed 6.68%, which is crazy. That has to do with some of the chaos. I mean, it's been all over the place, right? Oil has affected the bond market, right? The issue with Iran and going back in the more bombing. And so there's obviously creates some stuff there, but it really kind of follows a 10-year treasury, which just hit another high as well. And so there's a lot of concerns there with that. Many predicting, including myself, 4 or 5 shows ago, we're probably going to see above 7% here based on what we're going to see going forward. And that's very, very bad for home sellers. Why is that? Because people aren't going to be able to afford your property. And here's the crazy part, being a second home market, there's this thing that Fannie and Freddie Mac have called an overlay. And so if they're buying a second home, there's a higher interest rate on top of the base. For example, 6.85, they're paying 7.85, which is impossible in many cases to make the numbers make sense to buy, which means there's less buyers, which means the second homes are crushing, right? Like there's a lot of places right now struggling. River Oaks, for example, seen a couple there, had somebody wants to buy one in there and the values have plummeted in there. They were selling like 160, 170 last year. Right now, one just closed this week for 110,000. 2-bedroom, which is crazy right now. It's good if it's a long-term hold for you, but there's some challenging things in condos. And so really want to understand, help you get ahead of that. And the good news is I think we have a whole window. I've been pitching my team super hard on this. Like, look, make sure we're communicating with everyone. There's a window, especially on the buyer side, especially in listings. If you're a buyer and you wait, guess what? You have higher interest rates. It's more difficult to afford what you want, right? So if you're a seller, there's going to be less buyers for your property, which means you're going to sit longer. You may not sell for as much. I don't think you'll see a drastic drop in prices just because so many people are locked in with low interest rates, so lots of equity. So you may see some people start to drop some second homes and things like that. But we'll kind of talk about that a little bit. If you look at the last 7 days, I'll cover the micro market first, which is the rearview mirror, which is basically the one that just closed last month overall. Those are ones that did really well, right? That was coming on the heels of a super great spring, we'll call it Q2, rates are low. Resale homes sales up 13.8%, which is a huge new record since June 2022. 636 properties sold. It's like a graph straight up since February. February is 362 properties close. Then it went to March 493, April 544, May 604, and then June 636. And so big difference there overall. If you look at sales price, up 4.7% for median price last month for resale homes, up at $400,500, which is great. Not quite back to the record. The record was back in December at 405 even. This is 405,000 even. This last month was 400,500 difference there. Looking at average sale price, up 8.1% year over year, which is great at $506,795. The peak though was at December last year, $555,146. So great news. At least it's holding on, but I do think you're going to see prices soften for sure. One thing we're watching is the months of supply. Right now it's 5.1 months inventory, which means it's a seller's market still. Once it's 6 months or more, it becomes a buyer's market, but it's right there on the edge. It does get a little bit tricky right now if you look at new construction. New construction is the number one competitor right now for resale homes. In many neighborhoods, the large tract builders are building and selling for less than you paid for it in the last 3 or 4 years. They're also offering $30,000, $40,000 of incentives in terms of closing costs, rebates. In addition to that, they're offering buy downs of interest rates, in many cases 2.99%. We just saw this week. And so that's something that is a big draw for a lot of buyers right now. And I recommend a lot of first-time buyers go there. Our team was talking about that. We put a few under contract this week with large builders, with people who are looking to buy here because the incentives are so good. And so that's what you're competing with as a home seller. You need property differentiated. It makes a big difference. You look at average days on market right now, the properties that do sell, 110 days on market on average. And if you look at the key numbers here, how many showings per listing? The average listing right now gets 3.4 showings per listing the entire time it's listed. If you look at showings depending, how many does it take to get a contract? It's 11.7. So let's say 12. Average gets 3.4, 12 it needs for a contract. You need about 4 times the amount of showings that the average listing gets to get it under contract. That's why so many properties are just sitting there in what we call a stagnant mass. The agent's doing the basics. They just take the MLS, take basic photos, in some cases maybe professional photos. Then they basically just put out there and they have no marketing dollars behind it. And the new thing that I'm seeing a lot, you probably notice this a lot, is like the new Instagram and Facebook videos. I can't tell you how many realtors I see on my Facebook that sell 4 houses a year with these crazy videos that they're doing with the spin arounds, and then it comes in and the walk-in video. The problem is you look at the end of it, it gets 32 views. That's not going to sell your property. What it does is it gets them more listings and it gets them somebody else. Oh, that's a cool video, but it doesn't actually sell the property. Why? Because there's no money behind it. There's no reach behind it. You can do the coolest video in the world. You get 32 views or even 100 views or maybe 200 views. Guess what? Still doesn't move the property. And so you need someone that can really, truly get massive amounts of eyeballs on it, massive amounts of follow-up, and people who actually take action on it and get what we call engaged buyers, right? People who go out online and search for properties. Those are much more valuable buyers than someone who just scrolls on Facebook at work, bored, and looks at a video, right? There is a difference in paid traffic and some of that organic stuff, which makes a big, big difference. So keep that in mind when you're looking at this stuff as well. Overall, if you look at condos, into condo sales, resale, it's holding on decent last month in terms of sales, up 10.5%, which is great from the same month last year. It is down month versus month, went from 462 down to 433. Prices, though, up 0.3% for average sale price right now, condos, which is good. A lot of condos taking massive hits. And there's a tale of two worlds with that. There's inland condos and townhomes, right, where people are buying, renting those, basically a full-time 12-month rental. And then or they're living in it. And there's also condo hotels on the ocean. Those are getting hammered right now because rents are down in many cases, some cases 20, 30%. HOA prices are up, a lot more inventory. And so a lot of owners are getting crushed right now with that. And so it is a case-by-case basis. You're going to break that down. Looking at sales price, median sale price up 1.2% for condos last month, 227,000, which is great. Supply right now, 8.2 months of supply. So it's definitely a buyer's market. Which is great news for buyers. It was at 8.8 months. Right now it's 8.2 months, which is a little bit better. If you look at showings per listing, the average condo only gets 1.7 showings per listing the entire time it's listed. If you have to guess, the average listing agreement is about 6 months. You're talking 1.7 showings, a showing every 3 months, which is pretty crazy, right? If you look at how many showings it takes to get an offer for condos, it takes 8.4. So you can see that 4 to 5 times the amount of showings needed than the average condo gets. That's why you can't just pick any random agent. That's why you can't use your, friend's cousin's neighbor who just got their license. That's just a setup for failure, right? You want somebody who can drive traffic right now in a very difficult market with lots of headwinds, who can differentiate that. And that's what you need regardless of that. So look at some good news, though. The market's still been very resilient in the head, right? This headwind of his new interest rates being high. Last week's show was right at close to 6.7. Right now, 6.85 this morning, which is crazy. A new high for the year in terms of interest rates. But the last 7 days, still pumping. 540 properties under contract in our MLS, which is awesome. The volume of that, $219,639,974. What does that mean? Anytime we're over 200 million, it's rolling. That's great news for us in terms of summer market here. That's really my threshold. And it dropped below there a few weeks ago, right on July 4th, back up to 219 million, which is great. Some big time properties, a residential property in Myrtle Beach, 4.5 million, another one, 3.85 million, 2.69 million, 2.5 million, 2.5 million, 2.1 million, all in the last 7 days. Remember, that wouldn't happen in 4 years here, about 10 years ago. So great news there for a lot of high-end clients. We're seeing the same exact thing. 22 properties over $1 million went under contract the last 7 days. So big money coming in. Most of those we're seeing, many of which are cash deals, right? 119 properties over 500,000 under contract in the last 7 days. So the high end is doing very well. We're seeing a lot of people from the Northeast, right, relocate, sell their property up there, the much higher average sale price. Their stock portfolio is doing very, very well. They're coming here to a lower cost of living, and it's a very, very good niche right now that we're very well dialed into to help our sellers out. We run massive amounts of ads up there, both online. We can track it by their IP address, and that's how we do it. And so looking at inventory, there's 1,891 single-family homes on the market in Myrtle Beach. It's been hanging around right 1,900 for the past month and a half. And so it's enough for buyers to have some choices. At the same time, right, it's not too much out there where it's crazy for home sellers. They can't, get anybody to buy it. Look at last week's show, 221 million and 567. So went from 567 to 540, which is not that big a deal. Only 27 properties in a 7-day period, but lots of big volume. And so what does that mean? If you're thinking about selling, you need to do it sooner rather than later. I'm not just saying it to hustle. It goes back to what we talked about the past few weeks. If you look at what's happening with the Fed futures, and I get this question about all the time, like, what's the Fed futures? Okay, if you watch that, it's a group of very, very smart people on Wall Street who watch and predict what's happening with the Federal Reserve. And so obviously when they raise rates, there is an indirect causation with the bond market, which affects mortgage rates. And so the next Federal Reserve meetings in 5 days and 1 hour. Right now, not a huge chance of a hike, only 36%. Most likely it's going to stay where it's at. Overall, no change right now, 64%. Where it gets ugly is when you start looking at the future meetings. There's one in September right now. Check it out. Right now, the September meeting, there's an 80% chance there's going to be a rate hike. And so that's bad news for you right there. As a home seller, if you look at the October meeting, guess what? 86% chance of a rate hike. And if you look at December meeting, 91% chance of a rate hike. And so what does that mean? Same thing I talked about. We'll see rates probably over 7%. It'll be a very difficult Q4, just like it was last year in Q4 for properties getting moved very, very slow. And so if you're thinking about doing it, do it sooner rather than later. One of the things I learned growing up here, right? Make the hay while the sun shines. The summer market makes a big difference. And there is a window, in my opinion, the next really month and a half to get these quality buyers that are coming down from out of area. And so if you want to know more how that works and you want to customize strategy for your current situation, reach out, give me a call, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com anytime. How much time we got left? 4 minutes. Let's get that last break. I just want to get a couple cool things. Hot buyers alert. One thing we talk about every single week on this show is our hot buyers alert. One thing we do that a lot of agents don't is put our money where our mouth is, right? So many people talk about their number one, or they do this or do that. We outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint, and we're able to do that from our unique business model. And so right now, with active home buyers that we have, right, we have massive amounts looking for properties here, Myrtle Beach, Grand Trent area, anywhere from $250,000 to $6.6 million. If you're thinking about selling, give us a call immediately, 843-808-SOLD right now, 84,012 active home buyers, 84,012 active home buyers from all over. I got Bloomfield, Illinois, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Columbia, South Carolina, Towanda somewhere. I can't see the actual state on it. I got Anthony from Hardy, Delaware, Pittsburgh, PA, Wilmington, North Carolina, Greer, South Carolina, Salem, Virginia, Baltimore, Maryland. So all over the place. And so the difference in us from anybody else, your friend or whoever it is, when they put a sign on the ground, that's when they start marketing. And so you're way behind the 8 ball. For me, we've been sending 6 figures a month for years now. And we have massive amounts of buyers, of what we call buyers in waiting. And so what our goal is, we have a team makes 14,000 phone calls a week. We back up and reverse engineer the most likely buyer for your property based on your type and what they've been looking for. And then our job is to hustle and push it. And so we can move the needle and sell properties faster for more money because we have what we call buyers in waiting. That's how we do our quick sale. And so if you want to know how it works, you owe it to yourself to check it out. Call me, 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. Awesome success story. Really proud of this one. It's super cool. David and Luann owned a house locally. They found themselves in an incredibly difficult situation. After David had been out of work for nearly 6 months, they've fallen 8 months behind on their mortgage and started receiving a foreclosure notice, all while trying to provide for their 2 children. They knew they needed to sell quickly, but they were terrified of losing the equity they worked so hard to build. Like many homeowners in their situation, they first spoke with several investors, only to discover they were trying to buy their home for pennies on the dollar and take advantage of their circumstances. Thankfully, David and Luann had seen a commercial on TV of myself, also seen the billboards, decided to give us a call before making a decision. We came in, met with them, shared with them how our guaranteed toll system and the quick sale program can help them sell the property just as fast, but for a whole lot more money at full market value. I came in to design a custom plan, launched our Global Marketing Blitz, professional photos, virtual reality walkthrough. Check this out. Response was incredible. Generated 12 showings in the first 2 weeks, received a full price cash offer, giving them the certainty they needed to move forward and the extra cash in their pocket to get what the property's worth. Today they're closing their home, relocating to Tennessee where David got a new job. And instead of losing everything to foreclosure, they're going to walk away with the equity they worked so hard for and not give it away for their fresh start. And so they couldn't be happier. They called someone here before they couldn't be happier. They called us before going with someone else. And we're able to put about $50,000 more in their pocket than these investors were offering at very, very low amounts. And so that's why that detail matters. So if you want to be part of that, reach out, give us a call, 843-808-SOLD. Yeah, one thing really quick, super cool. The Real Trends 1,000, top 1,000 agents. They rank out of like 1.2 million agents in North America. Guess what? We just came in as the #1 mega team in Myrtle Beach. Big shout out to our team. So thankful to have them. Everyone hustles. We were #1 for years and years and years now. Mega team means like the largest teams, right? Here locally, which is awesome. Number 70 in the United States, which is incredible when you're talking about 1 million plus agents. For us to do that in a small little market here like Myrtle Beach. And so we share that because the agent you choose matters. Their commitment to excellence that they have matters, and the way they follow up and follow through matters more than anything. You're talking about a very long sales cycle. So if you want to be part of that, want to know more about it, go check the documentary out today at blakesloan.com, or give us a call back at 843-808-SOUL. We'll see you back here next week at the same time.